Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Bentley, and along with Hirsch Perlis, we're your co-hosts today. This is our third in a series called Lawyering from Home. We started this, obviously, after the very challenging of events of a few weeks ago. And we did it to help all of you figure out how better to practice remotely. It's a reality that many of us have been thrust into, but some others have been living, and we wanted to share experiences. We are really delighted with our special guest today, who I'll ask Hirsch to introduce in just a moment or two. A word about us. 5 years ago, Hirsch and I co-founded the Legal Innovation Zone, which is the first incubator that we found anywhere dedicated to legal tech. We help startups get going, take them from concept all the way through to international sales. We support organizations with innovative agendas and approaches, and we've been trying to modernize the justice system, beginning with family law for a number of years now, all of which are interesting issues today. A couple of housekeeping matters. If for any reason the technology goes wonky, sorry about that, we'll fix it. Don't worry. If you have a question, please send it through the chat function. We'll get to the questions as we go along. If you want to see this again, we are recording it. It'll be up on our website. Give us about 48 hours. The slides, if there are any slides during the presentation, as I anticipate there will be, they'll be recorded as part of the session, and you'll be able to watch the session and see those. So with that, I know these are challenging times. I think if we share information and share ideas and share initiatives, we're more likely to pull through this together in a better way. We're delighted to be co-hosting this series, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Hirsch Perlis to introduce the session and our special guest.
Thanks, Chris. Welcome, everyone. We are very excited, as Chris said, to have a very special guest today. We have Bob Ambrogi. He is a lawyer and a legal journalist who has been writing and speaking about legal technology, legal practice, and legal ethics for more than 2 decades. He's been writing his world-renowned blog, Law Sites, since 2002, and hosts Law Next, the podcast that features innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law, and writes a column on legal technology for Above the Law. In 2011, Bob was named the inaugural Fast Case 50, honoring the law's smartest, most courageous innovators, techies, visionaries, and leaders. In 2017, he was honored by the ABA Journal as a Legal Rebels Trailblazer. He's a past president of the Massachusetts Bar Foundation. Earlier in his career, Bob was editor-in-chief of the National Law Journal, editorial director of ALM's litigation service. He has written for numerous papers and magazines. Literally, there is a trail of awards in his wake. We are honored to have him. He even wrote, I think, the first internet newsletter on lawyers called legal.online. A true innovator for decades. And so we thought of no one better to talk about how technology will be impacted by everything happening right now. And so we're going to let Bob kick it off. And maybe I would just ask the question of, how have you seen people using technology sort of up until this? And what do you think the COVID-19 crisis will do to change how people are using technology in the future? Bob, thank you.
Hey, thanks Hirsch and Chris for having me here today. Wow, I don't know how you dug up the fact that I did the Legal Online newsletter, but I did that so long ago that it was actually, even though it was a newsletter about the internet, it was in print because no lawyers were on the internet at that point. So we had to mail it out in a hard copy. So yeah, I've been following this stuff for a long time. In answer to your question, obviously, I've been somebody who's been sort of banging the drum for technology for a long time in the legal space. And, clearly we have come a long way in terms of lawyers' adoption of technology. When I kind of first really started writing a lot about, my blog is what is it? My blog is like 16 or 17 years old now at this point, crazily. You know, I kind of thought I'd be kind of writing about this stuff for a couple of years, and then everybody would have it all figured out, and I'd move on to other things. And clearly, the adoption curve for technology in the legal profession has been slow overall. But there've always been there's always been sort of a vanguard of adoption, and interestingly for me, I've always thought that solo and smaller firms were often among the first to really be using technology in a highly integrated way in their practices, often out of necessity, often as a way of trying to level the playing field, or because they happen to be maybe practicing in a place where the tools, the resources of physical libraries or whatever weren't as easily available for them, so they were able to do things online that they couldn't do in their physical offices or in their physical communities. But still, I think that for a lot of lawyers, the adoption curve has been slow, and so I mean, what's happening right now really is that the future that we've all been talking about and in some ways preparing for has just suddenly arrived overnight. It's been a real litmus test. I think it's going to be a real litmus test for some firms. It already has been for some firms, and it's going to be a difficult time. We were actually just talking before we kind of started recording on, some firms are really going to have a hard time with this. Other firms, I think, are going to do very well. And I think the degree to which a firm already uses technology or begins to adapt and use technology is going to play a role in their future success. I've got some slides here, and I can pop this open here a little bit and get started in talking about a couple of things. Get this going here. So first of all, just to kind of continue the discussion of what we were just talking about, I wanted to just kind of build out a little bit on this idea of tech competence. Is something that I've also written a lot about and talked a lot about, and I know we have an audience today that's spanning national borders. I've focused a lot on the duty of tech competence in the United States, where way back in 2010, was it 2011, 2012 it was, the ABA adopted this change to Model Rule 1.1 Comment 8 regarding basically what's come to be called the duty of technology competence. It's not quite worded that way, but the ethics opinions that have looked at it since have really made clear that lawyers do have a duty to be competent in technology as it affects their competence to represent their clients and their ability to represent their clients. In the United States, 38 states have now adopted this duty, and even some of the states that haven't formally adopted the ABA rule have adopted it through some kind of an ethics opinion or otherwise. So it's become more or less universal in the United States. Canada is also starting down this road. In 2019, in October, just last October, the Federation of Law Societies of Canada formally amended its model code to include a duty of tech competence. They said it sort of incorporates this concept of proportionality. They said that to maintain the required level of competence, a lawyer should develop an understanding of and ability to use technology relevant to the nature and area of the lawyer's practice and responsibilities. The lawyer should understand the benefits and risks associated with relevant technology, recognizing the lawyer's duty to protect confidential information set out in section 3.3. So I don't really want to make this a treatise on technology competence, but I think it's important to kind of point out that this is something that's already been expected of us, and under these circumstances perhaps becomes even more significant. And I would also just kind of make the point that this duty is not just a duty to understand the tools that you use in your practice or potentially could use in your practice. It encompasses an obligation to understand how your clients are using technology. And I think that becomes even more critical at this time when our clients, like us, are being forced to work from home. It plays into questions such as, how are you going to communicate with them in a secure way? What kinds of security measures do they have in place? Not just do you have in place? Are you going to be using encryption for email, or are you going to be using some kind of encrypted or protected video conferencing? If you're representing, say, an individual in a domestic issue, you want to understand who else is using that computer, especially now that they're all possibly using the same computer at home. So it's not just understanding your technology, but it's also understanding how your clients use it or should be using it, and being able to give them some advice on that. But that's not really what I want to talk about today. What I'm going to talk about more today is some of my thoughts on some of the basics for working from home. And I'm going to do it with a special emphasis on what's being offered to legal professionals right now by legal tech companies in terms of free offers or reduced priced offers that have specifically been implemented in response to the coronavirus pandemic as a way of helping lawyers get up to speed, particularly in working on the cloud and working remotely. And I think it's kind of funny because as I thought about this, I started to think about the fact that the tools that we need to work from home really aren't any different than the tools that we need to be working from wherever we're working these days. I mean, we are increasingly cloud-based, and that means we have the benefit, the ability to run our practices from wherever we are and on whatever device we're working. So, if you have a truly cloud-based practice, in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter and shouldn't matter whether you're working out of your bricks and mortar office or a desk in your bedroom. The same tool should be available to you. So just to kick off, of course, one of the first things everybody needs are just the sort of the basic office tools of Word and Excel, spreadsheets and word processing and PowerPoint, whatever. And I want to point out here the Office 365 suite, because right now they have an offer in response to this. It doesn't show it on this page, but it's actually free for the next 6 months for new Office 365 customers to use this plan that you see on the right, the Office 365 Business Essentials. And this is basically the full suite of Office apps, including Exchange and SharePoint and Microsoft Teams, totally free for the next 6 months. And then after that, this is what it costs, $5 a month. So it's pretty cheap by any matter. It does not include, it's all cloud-based, so it does not include the local, desktop apps that you can install, but you have full Outlook, Word, functionality in the cloud-based version. If you want to go for, if you want to skip the free offer and do something more, the Office 365 Business plan over on the left-hand side, $825 user a month, again, is pretty good. And Office, we all know it. Probably most of us are using it, but it's really just gotten a lot better over the last couple of years. It's a great suite of tools, and there are a whole bunch of applications of apps that come along with your subscription that let you do any number of very specific functions. So well worth considering it. And it comes with Teams. The business versions comes with access to Teams, which at a time like this is, again, a really good tool. If you haven't played around with Microsoft Teams, and I should say that what we've always called Office 365 is changing its name a little bit later this month to Microsoft 365. So all the plans will now be branded as Microsoft 365. But Teams is a great tool, especially for this time of working from home, because it provides pretty much anything you need for working with teams within your office. And a team can be something you define however you want it to be. It doesn't just have to be your colleagues in your law firm, and certainly your clients can be part of a team or any of your teams. You can do video conferencing, you can do chats, you can actually even do phone calls with Teams if you have it set up and enabled. That's a separate charge to be able to do phone calling, but you can do all of that with Teams. It's Slack, it's Zoom, it's all those features that you look for in other conferencing applications, all kind of merged into one. And then, of course, there's just the Google G Suite is another option for you. Also very affordable. The basic G Suite, which is their professional business application, starts at just $6 a month. And again, I think we're all pretty much familiar with that. A couple of comments about practice management applications. I really think that every lawyer should be using a practice management application right now of some kind. Probably the best known out there and the one that has the most users is Clio. And I don't want to make, I'm going to be talking about some specific products here. I don't want to make this be a advertisement for any one particular product over another. But in terms of offers relating to the coronavirus crisis that we're in right now, Clio has made one of the most generous that we've seen in the industry, which is it's committed $1 million of its own money to help the legal community right now. And that $1 million is going to various things, but one of the things it's going to is pretty much direct financial aid to lawyers to help them get up on the cloud. And that means, for example, you can get help from Clio to get a license to Clio, but basically they're going to put some of that money to providing free licenses to new customers who have some kind of a financial need to get up and running on Clio. They're also going to provide free help with onboarding and implementation for firms wanting to move onto the cloud. They're also going to provide financial aid, both directly and with subscription help, to some of their current customers and law firms that maybe are struggling to maintain business continuity or that need additional support of some kind in moving to the cloud, even to the point of helping with helping to put them in touch with consultants who are offering to provide free help. So that's a pretty cool offer and one to check out. All of the stuff, I should say, and I'm going to put the URL up later, but on my blog, which is lawsites.com, I've been compiling a whole list of resources that are available for free or reduced price. And so it's lawsitesblog.com/coronavirus-resources. And again, I'll put that URL up later. In terms of billing and accounting, another essential tool everybody's going to need right now, and I assume a number of you already have something in place. If you have any of the leading practice management applications, you're going to have some level of billing and accounting built into it already. I mentioned Clio, my case, Rocket Matter, Practice Panther, Cosmolex. There's a number of them out there that are quite good programs. They take different approaches to how they package the core basics of a practice management program. Clio has taken the approach of being sort of a basic package of contact matter management and contact management and that sort of thing. And then it does lots of integrations with third parties to bring in other features and capabilities that you may need. A suite such as My Case takes kind of a different approach where they have all of it built into one practice management platform. They don't sort of partner or have a lot of integrations with outside platforms. But these are some special offers that are sort of billing and accounting specific programs that are out there. TrustBooks right now is a great program that just focuses pretty much on trust accounting and does it very well. It's a cloud-based trust accounting application. They're offering 3 months free right now. Plus, if you need help, if you need to defer payments to a later time, they'll help you with that. Soluno and TimeSolve are both time and billing applications offering free trials, extended free trials for new firms or qualified firms. In terms of payments, again, you're going to want to get some way to have your people paying you virtually. You don't want to be waiting for checks to be coming in the mail or making people have to drop by your office to drop off a payment. And there are a number of e-payment solutions out there. Here again, it's worth mentioning that a lot of the practice management applications have e-payments directly integrated into them. Both My Case has its own e-payments application that it's built and that's part of its offering. Rocket Matter owns an e-payment company, and that it's a separate subscription or a separate pricing, but it integrates with the Rocket Matter platform. And Cosmolex offers e-payments through LawPay as part of your subscription. And then there are standalone apps like again, LawPay, HeadNote are a couple out there that handle e-payments for you. On video conferencing, everybody is, we are here on Zoom. We've all been reading about some of the Zoom problems, particularly security problems in recent days. Zoom has been taking a lot of steps to counter some of those concerns, including things like setting it to require password by default, taking steps to prevent Zoom bombing. You may have read in the last couple of days a lot of stories about Zoom conferences recorded on Zoom appearing on the open web for all to see. That wasn't a Zoom problem. That was a problem with people downloading their recordings and uploading them to places where they were publicly exposed. But there were Zoom was blamed partly because it has a naming convention that allowed those to be searched for and found fairly easily. But something you might want to consider is a company called Legaler. Legaler is a purpose-built for law video conferencing application. It's meant to provide a platform for lawyers to meet with their clients by video conference. It handles the whole scheduling and booking of the call. You get a personalized, highly secure meeting room. It's fully encrypted. You can share documents, work on documents. You can have real-time chat and record all of this and save it all to specific client matters. And they, again, right now in response to the COVID-19 plan, they have put out their primary plan, their main plan, absolutely free for 12 months to any solo or small firm lawyer of 10 lawyers or less, or small firm of 10 lawyers or less. It's a pretty good offer. I've played around with their video conferencing, and it's quite good and well worth considering. Another platform that offers kind of a whole range of collaboration applications, again, purposely built for lawyers, is WorkStorm. And their offer isn't quite as generous as what I was just telling you, but they are offering 2 months free to try it out. And they also have kind of the full suite of collaboration functions that that something like Teams has as well. But messaging, video conferencing integrates with your calendar, integrates with email, file sharing, and integrates with your document management system. So something to consider there. Some of you may be wanting or curious about virtual receptionist services. These are services such as, a lot of you probably have heard of Ruby Receptionist, which is probably the leading one out there. I could not find anything on Ruby's site indicating that they have any kind of a particular offer right now. Smith AI is another one that's out there that offers virtual receptionist services. And they have two things, both the virtual receptionists, which are people who will actually answer your calls coming into your office and route them appropriately or make notes to the appropriate contact in your practice management system, and they integrate with your practice management system. And they also have a website chat. They are offering a free trial. You get 20 calls free plus an additional 20 calls free during the first month. And they will set up a free integration with whatever practice management program you happen to use, providing it's one they integrate with, which is a lot of the leading ones. And they're also they're throwing in a free chatbot. This is a chatbot that works on your website. So a client can come to your website and be guided through a series of questions, and then that information will go into your practice management system or your case management system, and of course you'll get that information as well. Court calendaring, not so much an essential perhaps right now. Unclear what courts are even doing in a lot of jurisdictions. That may be on hold, but I wanted to mention this particular one with Law Toolbox for a specific reason, which is Law Toolbox is a court calendaring application that unfortunately just does court calendaring in the United States, I think. I'm not aware that it extends into Canada at all. But what they have done is built this incredibly tight integration with Office 365, and in particular with Office 365 Teams and Outlook as well, that effectively allows you to create a practice management or matter management system entirely within Office 365. What they do is essentially, it's kind of it's litigation focused, obviously, but every time you open a new matter in Law Toolbox, it also creates a new matter or a new team within Teams. So for all of your matters, you have an associated team in Microsoft Teams, and all of the features of Microsoft Teams linked to everything you're doing in Law Toolbox. So it makes a really powerful combination, and as I say, effectively a practice management application all within Office. They are offering their own product free right now for 3 months. Plus, they will help you get set up on that Office 365 6-month plan that I mentioned earlier, and they will work with you on onboarding and training to get it all set up. And I think they say they're having next day onboarding for this right now. So again, a somewhat useful offer right now. In terms of document automation, a couple of offers kind of worth talking about, I think. One is the Form tool. I don't know if some of you may have used the Form tool. It's a very easy to use document assembly and document automation software. You know, in other words, it's something that will help you set up, help you create documents automatically just by filling in a couple of forms of essential information, and then it'll put out the document. It's a Word add-in. It works with Microsoft Word. They are currently offering. They usually sell their license by the seat, and they are currently, and you can get a license to their Pro plan, which is pretty much the best of their basic plan. They have some enterprise level plans or whatever, but the Pro plan is only costs $89 a year to begin with, which is pretty cheap. But right now, what in light of this current situation, they are offering anybody who has a subscription to who has a license to their Pro plan, unlimited additional licenses. So if suddenly you need seats for 50 lawyers in your firm who don't have it, you can get those 50 licenses absolutely free. They said, you know, if it's 2,000 licenses you need, they will give them to you absolutely free right now. And if you're not an existing customer, if you don't currently have a license, you can buy that one license for $89 and become eligible for all those extra licenses. So a pretty generous license for a tool that I think is pretty useful. Another sort of document generation one worth mentioning, this was just launched last week. This is really focused on businesses, not on law firms, but it's something you may want to be able to tell your business clients about. It is essentially a automation. 650 is a technology subsidiary of the Silicon Valley law firm Wilson Sonsini. And they've created a number of products in conjunction with Wilson Sonsini, but this one is a COVID-19 policy site. Essentially, it will, a company can go in and be prompted to go through a brief questionnaire asking some standard questions about the company, and it will generate a number of COVID-19 related policies, an extended sick leave policy, a policy on remote work, a policy on employee travel, and a policy on expense reimbursement in light of this situation. And these are all policies that have been, the basic templates of which have been developed by employment lawyers at Wilson Sonsini. So you know you're getting a pretty good quality product there. And then it also has an employee questionnaire side to it. So if companies need to kind of keep track of their employees, various types of information about their employees as they're working remotely, they can use it to do this, and it'll create a dashboard where you get a lot of basic information about your employees. Depositions. Depositions may need to keep going on during this time when none of us can get out to do depositions in the real world. This is a product you might want to look into. They're not currently offering any free offers that I'm aware of, but they're fairly new to the market, and I've only recently come to know of them and had a chance to get to see their product a little bit. But they're a really good. They do a really good job with handling remote depositions. They are primarily marketing themselves to court reporters. In other words, a court reporter is going to be the primary customer that's going to license this technology and then make it available to law firms. But a number of law firms are also beginning to license it as well, so that they have it available to them. And it allows a deposition to be conducted remotely. It creates allows a high resolution video as the deposition is going on. It allows the introduction and marking of exhibits. It creates a searchable transcript of the audio as it's proceeding of the audio, so you can go back easily and find moments in the recording. So it's pretty cool. They also have a virtual mediation tool very similar to this that have separate caucus rooms for parties to kind of go off and meet still in the video conference in a caucus, but remote from the other party's caucus team. So it's a useful technology during this time. Transaction management, deal closing essentially is what we're talking about here. And here I would mention Litera, which, this is for when you need to close a major acquisition or corporate deal of some kind, and you can't get those, you don't want to be trying to chase down those wet signatures or sitting in a room somewhere going through documents. Litera has, over the last year, acquired two of the leading deal management products on the market, Workshare, Transact, and Doxly, and kind of combined them into one. And then just over the last 2 weeks, it rolled out a sort of a light version of this that it's calling Litera Transact. Litera Transact's the main product, but they've rolled out a light version of Litera Transact that they are offering for free for the next 6 months for teams that need to close transactions. It includes things like templated closing checklists, signature automation and management using DocuSign, and creation of the closing books, including all the editing, organization, and assembly of the deal closing book. So that's a nice offer from them. On the legal research front, I haven't seen a lot of free offers yet coming down from anybody in terms of free access to legal research, except Casetext. Casetext is offering free access to its legal research service for a period of time for lawyers who can't access their usual legal research services. So it's a limited time, limited offer, but Casetext is a pretty cool research technology that is worth checking out anyway. So you might want to do it just to try it out. They recently came out with this new feature called Compose that I wrote about recently, which is their tool that will actually automatically create the first draft of a brief for you. It only works in U.S. federal court and in only certain kinds of motions at this point, although they will be expanding that out into other jurisdictions and other types of motions. But it'll create the first draft of a litigation brief for you almost automatically. It's a cool product. That is not included in their free offer. That's a separate product, but they have a number of innovative tools that they use, and it's a cool legal research service. I believe Colin Lachance from VLEX is on this call, and I know he mentioned that they're going to be coming out with an offer, I think, in the next week or two. So look forward to watching for more from VLEX on that regard. Just trying to be mindful of the time and leave some time for questions, but a few other things I'll mention here. Docket tracking, again, this is US only, but a couple of companies out there are offering kind of better interfaces to Pacer, the federal court docket system. A company called Pacer Pro right now is offering 3 months free. One of the features they offer is this automated delivery of PDFs. If any of you use the federal court Pacer system, you know that when a new filing is made on a case, you as the attorney get an email from the court, a notice of electronic filing, and that gives you a link where you can go download the PDF for free. If you lose that email or don't do it right away or forget and you need another copy later, you got to pay for it. Pacer Pro automates that. As soon as those notices of electronic filing go out, you can set it up so everybody on your team is going to get not just the email telling you there's a PDF, but actually get the PDF distributed right to you within moments of when it's filed in federal courts. It's a pretty cool service, and they also offer better searching of Pacer than Pacer allows on its own. Docket Alarm is another system owned by Fastcase. They're offering 3 months free for attorneys working on pro bono matters. I thought I'd offer a couple of just kind of news and resources sites that are out there right now. These aren't software tools, but they're useful to us right now. This is from LexBlog, where I happen to work with LexBlog as their editor-in-chief. And they recently launched a site called the Coronavirus Legal Daily. It's a very cool site, which is essentially aggregating what legal bloggers all over the world are writing about, related to the coronavirus situation. So they're basically, these are pulling together legal blog articles from all over the world, dealing with legal issues, regulatory, statutory, courts, and otherwise having to do with coronavirus. You can subscribe to it. You can get an email update every day from it. You can get there's an RSS feed for follow it that way, or you can just go to Coronavirus Legal Daily. Law 360, another really good news site overall, but the problem generally with Law 360 is it's all behind a paywall. This is the LexisNexis news company. They have put up a coronavirus section, which of course is opening up all of their coronavirus related coverage. And again, it's all focused on lawyers and legal professionals. So there's a lot of useful information and resources to be found here. Thomson Reuters, not surprisingly, has also put up a really good COVID-19 resource center. They have a collection of news, of insights and resources from all over the world, not just news from their Reuters news service, but resources out of their practical law library and other sources. And this truly is global. So there is, for example, a Canadian section of resources from practical law that they've pulled together in response to this. And finally, as we're all sitting here in our home offices, wondering whether the kids are going to bash down the door at any moment, or our spouse is going to yell out a question about where's the milk or something from the other room. There's this funny little tool I just came across. It's called Joan Home. And what it is you stick this on your door, and it connects through your Wi-Fi to your calendar on your computer, and it tells everybody in your house whether you're busy or free, and shows them what your availability is for the rest of the day, your schedule for the rest of the day. So in theory, your family members will see this and stop at the door. Of course, that assumes they're old enough to read, but it's a funny little tool. Unfortunately, it's $249, so it ain't cheap, but useful. So this is where you can find all this stuff that I've been talking about, lawsitesblog.com, coronavirus/resources. Here's where you can reach me if you have any follow-up. And at this point, if anybody has any questions, I will gladly take them, or discussion, or things to add, whatever else.
Well, thanks very much, Bob. And I have a general question to begin with, and that was a really helpful review and identification of different resources that are out there that are offering something extra, given the challenges of the time. Many people have spoken over the years about technology as an end in itself. And I know you, over the years, have spoken at length about technology as a means to an end. So here we are, we're in our remote offices, and we take advantage of these offers and we get set up. So is the end that this can be the means to business as it was before? Or is the end that this can be a means to a different way and a different approach to transacting law and legal services?
Well, the answer to that probably depends on where we're starting from. I think it can be a different approach to practicing law. I think the ultimate end in all of this is for us to be able to better serve our clients. It's not about making life easier for ourselves. It's about making us be able to deliver our services to our clients in a more cost-effective way, in a more efficient way, and with better results. I mean, what technology does is let us do what we do better, faster, and at lower cost. I really do think that we are at a transition point here. A number of people have said this in recent weeks, but we've been talking for a long time about transitioning to the cloud, about using a lot of these tools that will enable us to function remotely and in different ways. And all of a sudden, as I said earlier, that future arrived a lot faster than we ever thought it was going to. I think we're going to start to see dramatic changes. I mean, just courts alone. I mean, it's been probably one of the most surprising things. Well, it shouldn't be a surprise. I shouldn't say it's a surprise, but one of the most startling things has just been how unprepared our courts have been for this kind of a crisis. I think, frankly, obviously a lot of practicing lawyers are much more prepared for this. Richard Susskind, the kind of the legal futurist, came out with a book just a few months ago, I think, on online courts as sort of the future of courts. And here again, that future has suddenly just arrived a lot faster than I'm sure Richard Susskind or anybody else thought. So there are going to be permanent changes out of this. There's no question about that. I think the way we practice law and the way we incorporate technology into our practices is forever being rewritten right now as we stand here.
Many of the traditional practices are embedded in different jurisdictions in rules, whether they're set through the regulator or through the courts. And do you see at the moment a willingness first on the part of practitioners to consider rules changes that might have been resisted before? And do you see a willingness on behalf of a regulator or a court to consider rules changes which might have been resisted or thought not necessary before?
Well, there again, I mean, this is something where we have seen a lot of activity over the last year in particular, as a number of initiatives around the United States have taken hold to look more carefully at the traditional regulation of law practice and whether that traditional regulation needs to be rethought in any way. Probably I'm sure a lot of people on this call might have heard about what's going on in states such as California, Arizona, Utah, and others to take a close look at whether there should, the question of private investment in law practices, at the question of enabling those who are not traditionally licensed to practice law to deliver legal services, and a number of other changes. In some ways, the vanguard of this, in some ways, in the United States has been the state of Utah, where they are in the middle of setting up this sandbox where they're going to test alternative methods of delivering legal services, alternative kinds of legal services delivery organizations. So again, I think that the situation that we find ourselves in now is going to have a lot of regulators seeing a greater need for urgency around studying and perhaps implementing these kinds of regulatory reform measures.
Let's assume that we have taken all your advice. We've properly set ourselves up remotely. We're ready to go. Um, what else should we do to either reestablish or build our practice into the future? I mean, what things should we be thinking about? What other resources should we be accessing? How should we think about our practice in 3 months, 6 months, and in a year from now? What do you see coming?
I mean, I guess I think that once I kind of go back to what I said at the outset, which is in a way, a lot of the changes that we're talking about here aren't really changes tied specifically to working from home. They are changes that I think should be fundamental to pretty much every law practice. So I think that as firms start now to adapt to working from home, that they are going to find that these are going to be changes that are going to become of themselves permanent and long lasting. They're going to change the way they practice going forward. I do think, one of the interesting things is I think it's going to, if nothing else, it's going to make us rethink a lot of what we actually need to do face to face. Again, going back to the court example, suddenly I think we're going to question why do we always have to go into a courtroom to have certain kinds of hearings? And as courts adapt to start using Zoom conferences or whatever else they're using, I think that's going to become the norm, and I think that's beneficial to a lot of people who are served by the courts who literally have physical or transportation or geographic issues with actually getting to a courthouse. There's no reason to have to get to a courthouse. So I guess I think the changes that we're talking about here are going to become permanent. It's not that you need to kind of be thinking about how it's going to affect in 3 months. I think it's just going to naturally happen.
If you were giving some advice to those lawyers who are at the beginning of their careers, 0 to 5 years, they might be getting licensed this year. They might have just been licensed. They were looking forward to a practice which, given our history, was going to pretty much look like it's been looking for decades. All of a sudden, things are different. And they got a lived experience outside the law, which is often different than inside the law. What advice do you give to them, and what do you think their future holds?
It's difficult right now. It's going to be difficult for some lawyers, especially somebody who's just starting a firm right now. I do think there are what you have to do is look for the opportunities in a situation that may seem discouraging right now. Again, I was mentioning I follow there's a Reddit group, for example. A lot of lawyers, I think it's called Our Lawyers on Reddit, where you get a lot of solo small firm lawyers kind of sharing thoughts. And there are clearly some lawyers who are feeling discouraged right now or are feeling very concerned about their futures. But I think, especially for lawyers who are adept at technology, there are potentially some real opportunities here to build out what we used to call virtual practices, but to do more online, to offer more tools and forms and services online. There are to look for the practice areas that are most likely going to be needing services in the near future. I mean, I hate to say it, but bankruptcy is going to be a hot area, right? We know that. We don't like to think about it. People are saying family law is going to be an important area going forward for a number of reasons. Think about those kinds of practices, and think about how you can make yourself known in your community for your expertise in those practices. I'm a big fan of blogging, and I would say this is it's gonna be a very good time to get going with get a blog going and write about some really practical topics of use to people in your community. So you become a resource for people in your community, and they come to depend on you and turn to you. Engage on social media. Suddenly everybody's on Facebook, right? And suddenly everybody's on Twitter, and you should be there as well. And you should be there trying to be helpful and trying to be a resource for people in your, however you define your community, whatever your community is, whether it's a geographic community or, your practice might be global for that matter, but people need those kind of resources right now. So
in many ways,
for opportunities.
Yeah, in many ways, those younger, less experienced members of the bar have been conducting business and communicating with modern technology in virtually every other part of life, and they can bring a lot of what they experience on a daily basis to law.
Right.
And maybe in a few senses lead the profession to where it needs to go.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Where do you see newer members of the bar looking for jobs in the future?
There's actually a couple of on that resources page that I posted.
Yes.
There's a couple that have a couple of the resources listed there, and I haven't fully. One thing I need to do is go back and organize that page a little better right now. I've just come adding things as they come in because I'm getting 5 or 6 additions a day to the page. But there are a couple of job resources on there. I think Legal.io is one of them that is making a special effort to try and help people find employment opportunities right now. But when you say where to look for jobs, I don't know if you mean practice areas or specifically what are job listing sites. I mean, LinkedIn continues to be an important place for job postings and job listings and finding jobs. But the opportunities are going to be you can kind of foresee some of the areas where either there are areas of law that are recession proof. There's going to be a lot of litigation that comes out of this. There's going to be a lot of business issues that come out of this. As I said, bankruptcy, family law, employment law is huge right now. So, look at where the areas of practice are likely to have a demand and look at the traditional sources for finding opportunities in those areas of practice.
I'm just going to check, make sure we have no further questions.
Chris, I might just jump in here with one quick question.
Thanks.
Bob, you obviously track technology all over the world. Last time we chatted, you were talking to Richard from The Artificial Lawyer. I'm just wondering, maybe, I know we have like a minute left, so just very quickly, where do you see hotspots in terms of technology developing around the world? Are there better jurisdictions that are actually utilizing the technology? I'd love just to hear you very quickly on that.
What's really been striking to me over the last few years is the globalization of legal technology. I was actually supposed to be, where are we? I think this week I was supposed to be in London. I was supposed to be in Prague in a couple of weeks, speaking at a legal technology conference there. All of those are off the chart. Last year I spoke in Russia at a legal technology conference. Russia has some amazing stuff going on in the development of legal technology. I think what's really become clear is that the problems that we tend to think are unique or endemic to our particular countries, the problems of access to justice, the problems of, clients not being happy with the way their lawyers are delivering legal services, all of these kinds of things are universal. They're happening all across the world. This crisis right now is universal. It's happening all across the world. And the solutions, there is a thriving legal technology scene in virtually every country in the United States, in the world rather. Right now, it's really amazing. where are the hot spots? I mean, the United States remains a hot spot. Canada, Toronto, where you guys are, is the center of artificial intelligence development right now. Some really great stuff coming out of Toronto. The UK, a lot of good stuff coming out of the UK. But really, it's hard to identify a country. Recently, I've been talking to some people in Africa. There's a number of legal technology startups coming out of Africa now with some really interesting ideas. So it's everywhere. That's a good thing.
Well, with that, Bob, we're going to say thank you very much. Hirsch and I are very much appreciative of the time you've taken to share your thoughts with all of the viewers. We're going to be recording. We've recorded, as I say, and we'll be posting this on our Legal Innovation Zone website about 48 hours time. Just Legal Innovation Zone, you'll find us. And it's all free. It does count for 1 hour of professionalism for those Ontario registered lawyers for whom that is important. Again, Bob, thanks very much. Stay safe.
Thank you for having me. You guys stay safe too.
And to all of our viewers, please, health first, stay safe. We've got an exciting series that we are going to be announcing in a few days' time about where to go next. So until then, all the best.
Thank you.